of the African Leadership Group, the Nigerian Leadership Series. My name is Ituah Ighodalo. I hope you can all hear me, and perhaps you can all see me. You may not be able to see me very well, but here I am today at the African Leadership Group, the Nigerian Leadership Series, coming up with another one of our programs. Today, the African Leadership Group is committed to leadership in Africa, not just in Nigeria, and we're determined to, number one, emancipate the African continent. Number two, show leadership for Africans in diaspora, including the dark-skinned Americans, okay, who were taken away from Africa and became Americans, and make room for them to cooperate with Africans on the continent. So let's call them Africans off the continent with Africans on the continent, okay? And then number three, also to make a way for Africans off the continent in diaspora to be able to come back to Africa and build or rebuild Africa as it were. And then taking the leadership series to each country. So the Nigerian leadership series, the South African leadership series, the Ghanaian leadership series, and so on and so forth. The Somalian leadership series, the Egyptian leadership series, the Senegalese leadership series, to build and bring forth good and credible leadership on the African continent. This is the bane of Africa. These are the challenges of Africa. These are the difficulties of Africa. And we think we want to rise up and take the gauntlet, starting with our home base, Nigeria. And we're believing that God will give us speed, God will give us strength. Nigeria is at a really a cross-section of hard development, okay? Come 2023, we are going to be going to the polls to elect a new leader. And it's a very critical point, okay? Mandela was saying some time ago that if Nigeria gets it right, the whole of Africa will get it right. So we want Nigeria to get it right. And we don't have any more time to waste. We don't have any more 4 years to waste. We don't have any more 8 years to waste. So at the African Leadership Group, the Nigerian Leadership Series, we're looking at leadership selection process. Leadership selection process. What do we need to do, and how do we evaluate the present crop of people that have presented themselves for the leadership of Africa's largest economy and Africa's largest population? It is reputed that 1 out of every 4 dark-skinned person is a Nigerian, population of about 210 million people. It is not a joke, and Nigerians are everywhere in the world, doing great things. I saw a list of Nigerians who've done really great things in America, in Europe, here and there, everywhere. Great discoveries, leading institutions, and leading well. So we need to get it right in Nigeria so that we can begin to turn Nigeria around and also become the fulcrum on which Africa begins to turn. So we have developed this group, and we're going to be doing 3-4 things: speaking truth to power, encouraging power. Number 2, coming up with policies and plans and programs that we can present to anyone in power, especially in Nigeria, so that they can run with it and work with it, coming out with policies and programs in different aspects that we can present and they can run with it. Coming up with an evaluation criteria of evaluating leadership across Africa, especially also in Nigeria. So you're a governor and you think you've performed well, the Nigerian Leadership Series or the African Leadership Group will evaluate your performance and let your people know exactly how well you have performed and how well you could have performed. You're a president, the same thing. And then, of course, bring reward, accomplishment, accommodation, and promotion to those who've done well, and also explain to those who've not done so well that they could have done better. Today, our subject matter is a road to a new and better Nigeria. A road to a new and better Nigeria. First of all, is a new Nigeria possible? Secondly, can Nigeria be better? So the first question is a new Nigeria possible? The second question is, can Nigeria really be better? Have we gotten to the best that we can get? And then thirdly, what is the road? What is the road we should take? And then finally, what should every Nigerian do to be part of this journey and be part of this process? And then if we have enough time, are there roadblocks and things we need to cover and jump over to ensure we can get to this Nigeria? First of all, is it possible? Is it possible at all to have a new Nigeria with the state of things that we have? And to talk to us today is a gentleman who has been on this platform before, very outspoken, very knowledgeable, very bold, very determined to contribute his own quota to this Nigeria that we see. He attended the Lagos University, where he was president of the student union. So it's been in his blood to try and make things better, 1994 to 1995. And he has used his voice and pen to advocate for a better Nigeria. And driven by his passion for change, our speaker has been campaigning for the liberation of people from the oppressive Nigerian state. And then he wrote a book, Do Not Die in Their War, released in 2019. He thinks that we need a total overhaul of the Nigerian system, and so on and so forth. He likes to teach, educate, correct, and inspire this present generation and generations to come. Please welcome with me Dele Farotimi, a lawyer, a seasoned public speaker, and a member of the Citizens Rally Against Oppression, I beg your pardon. Dele, you are most welcome. And let me thank you for being my traveling companion, even though by accident, about 2 or 3 months ago, when we found ourselves on the same aircraft going to the United States. Let me also thank you very warmly and very greatly for all that you have been doing concerning our nation and for being very, very consistent. So my first question to you is this: is a new Nigeria possible? Is it possible or conceivable that Nigeria can be better? And if there's anything you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself, please go ahead and do so. God bless you.
Amen. Good evening, Pastor Ituah. It's always a pleasure seeing you and being with you. And yes, it was a pleasure traveling on the same flight with you. You've asked a pretty interesting question, and I've wanted to speak to this for a while. Is a new Nigeria possible? I am of the firm opinion that a new Nigeria is very, very, very possible. But the situation looks pretty bleak when we engage it without looking beyond the immediate. When we focus on where we are at present, the complete mess and ruination that has been made of the Nigerian space, it becomes very difficult to find reasons to be optimistic about Nigeria. And this is where you find several voices speaking to its dismemberment. But I believe that a new Nigeria is possible. But I also believe that perhaps we should stop looking to our rulers to deliver this new Nigeria. I believe it is more in the hands of the average Nigerian who has become victim of the Nigerian state to engage in what I prefer to call a leadership recruitment process, other than for us to expect that the crop of those who have always offered themselves for leadership are capable of delivering on their promises. The long years have shown us that practically each and every one of those who have had the opportunity to rule Nigeria have been ruinous in the extreme for the Nigerian. But 2023 presents an opportunity for the average Nigerian to recognize that we are the ones who would have to determine exactly what it is that we seek, and then consciously recruit our own leaders. That is the beauty of the situation our rulers have been forced into. They say we are a democracy. Their hubris has led them to amend the Electoral Act sufficiently for us to, if we're conscious and deliberate, recruit our own leaders this time around. That's my belief. I believe it is possible, but it can only happen with our own active participation and perhaps hijack of the process, conscious hijack of the process, to make sure that it is those who will rule and lead and not those who have consistently ruined that would attain power.
Thank you very, very much for that. Let me recap. What you're saying is that you do believe that a new Nigeria is possible, a better Nigeria is possible, but the essence is those who will rule and lead, not those who will ruin Nigeria. So we should have a leadership recruitment process. Now we have about 15 parties, or 15 or 16 presidential aspirants who have offered themselves for leadership in 2023. I have 3 questions to ask you. Have we not lost the plot to actually have been part of that process of the selection of these 15 or 16? A lot of them emerged from different kinds of processes. There have been rumors of buying of delegates, exchange of money, sole candidatures, people just hijacking and taking over processes and presenting themselves. Even 1 or 2 of the parties now, the ESCOs and the chairmen and the presidential candidates and gubernatorial candidates are quarreling all over the place, and a few court cases. So how much input did the average Nigerian have in the choice of these 16? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, what criteria do we need? What kind of people do we need to lead us? And among these 16, I don't know how many of them you know, and if you've studied them, is there any of them at all that has any of the criteria? So it's in part A, part B. Part A, what's the criteria? What kind of persons do we need? Okay, so that the people out there can hear you and know. And then one of the things we're doing also is doing an evaluation of all the 16 at some stage to see if they fit into the leadership criteria that we think. It'd be nice to hear what yours is. And if any at all of the 16 may fit into that position. Let me leave it at those 2 for now so that you can get into the meat of it.
In my opening statement, I did make clear that it is entirely up to the victims of Nigeria to determine how they go about the business of leadership recruitment. This is essentially because the system itself is not designed to deliver leaders. It is designed to deliver those who preserve the unjust system that has assured that the Nigerian space is essentially a slave plantation, and the Nigerian is anything but a citizen. It might be an indigent, it might be a serf, it might be many things, but the one thing the Nigerian isn't is a citizen. So if we, understanding clearly the objective realities of our existence as Nigerians, deliberately go about the business of identifying what kind of leadership we seek, which should be a function of a recognition of where we are. If we understand where we are, it then becomes easier to determine where we want to go, because even the question itself, this total thematic preoccupation of today's talk, you're talking about road to a new and then a better Nigeria. The fact that we need to find a way to a new and better Nigeria is suggestive of the realization of the fact that the old Nigeria is not desirable. I would say it's completely decadent, and Buhari has damaged it beyond repair. The second is that where we are is certainly to be deprecated in the extreme, which is why we are seeking a better space. Now, when you look at the process of emergence of candidates, as you have pointed out, you see very quickly that the last consideration of those who have thrown up these candidates are the electorates. Our will has been somewhat discounted. It does not appear to matter, and it appears to be pretty easy to trade and buy, as they have always bought amongst themselves. And then you see all kinds of candidates emerging through this flawed process. But when you focus on that process without looking to the larger society within which the system itself has been entrenched, and that system has produced the ruiners of Nigeria, you find very quickly that short of, I like to use the word revolution, but I have discovered that it is very difficult to place that word in context without evoking images of bloodshed and violence. But the truth is that anything that leads to a turnaround is revolutionary in nature. I believe that if we look to the people that has been thrown up by this process, you'll find very quickly that you'll still find one or two persons who holds the promise of a better Nigeria and a new one for that matter. I have settled on one of those people, and that is the person I am supporting, and I'll be canvassing votes on his behalf when the process opens up full-blown. The fact of the matter is that when you look to the 16, you get lost in the crowd. I think the Igbos have this funny thing they say you sometimes miss the tree because of the forest. Because when you're looking at the totality, it becomes easy to lose sight of the singular. I would say to you that the only candidates worthy of consideration in this race, one, I cannot look beyond the person of Mr. Peter Obi, but I cannot also discount the revolutionary capacity of a Yele Sowore. But I have settled, as I have said, on a Peter Obi because I believe for several reasons that his candidacy holds promises for the Nigerian people, and it is suggestive of the fact that we are taking a break away from where we have been. And it is possible that we will be able to achieve a turnaround under his leadership if we are able to be deliberate, at least sufficiently deliberate, in making sure that INEC, which I do not trust in the least bit, does not subvert the will of the Nigerian people as it has always lent itself to. So I think at this point, looking to the major parties, I look at the APC, I look at his ruinous record in office that has spanned over 7 years. I do not see anything about the APC to recommend it for future leadership in the Nigerian space. I look to the PDP and its candidate, and I do not see any breakaway from our inglorious past as well. But I look to Peter Obi, and I believe very strongly that his candidacy holds promises in several areas. The first being a repair of the damage that has been done, because the man has sufficient ideas to propel a change. That particularly, and his track record as governor of Anambra State, I'm not unaware of the several stories and tales by moonlight that have sprung up since the electoral season began, the revisionist attempts at maligning his character and his record. But I am happy to stay in that space, and that is where I'm at.
All right. I think that's a bold statement for Mr. Peter Obi. You have said that you looked at the track record of his governorship as governor of Anambra State, but he's been accused of quite a few things, including even an attempt to call him a drug runner or something like that. I don't know if you've investigated any of this very closely. Also to say that he invested, he got the state to invest in some of his own business or something, blah, 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 here and there. I don't know if you've looked at those things critically and you've come up with some conclusion or the other. And also somebody said,
let me put it this way, Pastor Ituah. In Nigeria, somebody once said that every time you want to have your biography laid out for you, join politics. Once you get into political, once you express your political ambition, multiple persons would attempt to help you rewrite your history. It is instructive that none of these salacious stories ever cropped up until he made known his presidential ambition. I have not paid particular attention to most of these things because I understand that when politics is around the corner, a lot of stories get told. Number one, whether Mr. Peter Obi, if we're talking about Peter Obi having been involved in drug running, I wonder what anybody will say about Mr. Tinubu, who is an indicted drug money launderer and who forfeited quite a large chunk of money. So when I hear that accusation issuing forth from a man whose name I do not know, whose age I do not know, whose educational qualifications are shrouded in mystery, I do not believe that it is worthy of any attention whatsoever. That is on one hand. When people speak to the fact that he invested Anambra State's money in Sabmela, which is a South African company, I don't understand when Sabmela became Peter Obi's company, but I'm sure that when the time comes, the candidate himself will be well able to answer these charges. But the most important thing I must point out, Peter Obi has not come out to tell anyone that is running for sainthood or that he wants to become the Pope, even though he's a Catholic. What he has said is that he wants to be president of Nigeria. If he has committed a crime, the APC government of Nigeria is sufficiently vindictive enough to make sure that that is hung around his neck. So all these unsubstantiated allegations, they're just water off my own back. It does not in the least bit interest me, and I have not bothered myself with it. I expect to hear more of such fallacies, and that's what I consider them to be. If he has done anything of substance, I assure you, Tinubu and his goons would have found a way to wrap that around his neck sufficiently. So it's not something I believe we should pay too much attention to. His election season fever. It comes with his stories, it comes with his nightmares. It is not of any concern to me. I don't consider it worthy of any particular attention, if the truth be told.
Okay, I didn't want this to be a context between him and Tinubu, but you did mention that name. And I'm tempted to say a few things a little bit on Tinubu's behalf. Number one, people have said that he did a fantastic job with Lagos. Number two, he's a team player and is an identifier of people of capacity. Number three, is the one that has the courage or the strength and determination to be able to bring about some form of restructuring in Nigeria and so on and so forth. I don't know if you want to speak to that or we should just pass.
Just like there will be slander during election season, you will also be compelled to listen to a lot of hyperboles that are not supported by the reality that my senses picked. I've lived in Lagos since 1985. I came to Lagos as a 17-year-old to attend LASU. And my time in LASU has spanned into a lifetime in Lagos. This is my 35th year of living in Lagos. Lagos did not start existing in 1999 when Mr. Tinubu happened on Lagos. So when they come with all these stories of how he's a unifier, he identifies talent, he identified the current winner of Nigeria that is sitting in the rock called ASU. That is sufficient basis for me to question his intellectual capacity and his ability to recognize talent. By his own admission, he was the one who brought this ruination upon all of us by going to meet a man who has luled, and then he went to bring the man who had already resigned himself to fate that his 12 million vote will never make him the president of Nigeria. It took Tinubu to visit that disaster upon Nigeria. On that ground alone, he is disqualified from even opening his mouth in the public square to have to be entrusted with power. That is one. The second thing is this. As I have pointed out, this is my 35th year of living in Lagos. Life has grown progressively worse in this state since 1999. Mr. Tinubu is always very quick to claim that he built Lagos. But I challenge anyone to tell me of any other state capital or town in the whole of Nigeria where you'll be in traffic at 11 o'clock at night. That is the kind of bad policy, the refusal to build a state. Even he himself could not find any hospitals to use in this Lagos state each time he has had the shakes and he has had to leave Nigeria to go and treat himself. There is nothing that has been done in Lagos State beyond turning the state into a private enterprise to be milked and destroyed. And it is even baffling that the constant repetition of the lies and myths and illusions of a Tinubu leadership has led people to the point where they can no longer differentiate between the lies and the obvious facts that stares them in the face on a daily basis. The Lekki-Epe Expressway is a good case and a good point from where to point at the failures of Tinubu's rulership. One, it was always a 4-lane road. They added an extra lane, hijacked and sold the road to themselves. The Lagos State House of Assembly has purchased that land at that road from LCC twice. Under Fashola, they purchased it. Under Ambode, they repurchased it. I think Ambode's time, it was 16.5 billion that was paid to repurchase that road. Today, that road is littered with potholes from one end to the other. If you go to the Ajah end, you find that they are already breaking the road apart again because the bridge they are bringing there is a complete afterthought. There were roundabouts which were housing billboards. Those roundabouts have today been demolished. If these were to be a company and we were shareholders in the company, we would have voted out this management a long time ago and perhaps sought their prosecution for wanton wastage of public fund, of shareholders' funds. So when they keep telling me that the man is some genius, the only genius that you can ascribe to the man is the genius of stealing, of avarice, extreme brigandage at all levels. So I am not in any way, shape, or form taken in by the repetition of these Goebbels-like lies that have been imbibed and bought by the people who are repeating it. In fact, what I have found is that each time they seek to defend or promote Mr. Tinubu's candidacy, the persons end up sounding stupid in the extreme. No matter how wise they might have been, they become as Ituah. They begin to sound foolish in the extreme because I don't really know what there is to point at and then be shouting a Milocon or that something great has happened. If anything, Lagos has been subjected to great ruination. Jakonde ruled Lagos for 4 years. The LASU that I attended is a seed of Jakonde's ingenuity. The LASU that is there today, how many people who went to LASU in my generation will send their children there? And they are talking about the genius of Mr. Tinubu. These are nothing but lies, bare-faced lies from the pit of hell. If anything, the man has brought Lagos to ruination.
Is there nothing good that he did? I mean, people don't talk about the automation, the Oracle automation of Lagos State governance, the identification of great leaders, the
To what purpose?
removal of garbage from the place and this and that and that.
No, please. I remember seeing some documentary where the man was busy vibrating and telling us how where Oriental Hotel is today was a garbage dump. That is a blatant lie. Blatant lie. You can tell that lie to those who came to Lagos yesterday. As I said, I came to Lagos in 1985. I didn't come yesterday. I did not enter Lagos in the year 2000. They speak about him building Lekki Phase 1. Lekki Phase 1 was there long before he came. I must give it to him that he was the one who connected them to the national grid in the year 2000, but it existed before him, that they were lifting garbage. That is the most basic task of any civilized government in any civilized society. So collection of waste. The only thing the man has done, Tinubu has been good for his friends. And it's like, I call it Jagaban PLC. The shareholders of Jagaban PLC have lived large of the sweat of every other Lagosian. They've cornered the state and turned it into a private fiefdom. And by virtue of this, they have all made money. So they can vote for him. They can clap for him. They can be his cheerleaders and bully boys. But the average citizens of Lagos State, and I'm abusing the word citizen when I use that word, the average dweller of Lagos State have been turned into serfs. The Agberos rule supreme in Lagos State because those are the ones whom he has empowered. The average man on the street of Lagos is just easy picking for Agberos. Crime has shot through the roof, Omonile everywhere, Agberos everywhere. Agberos has, look, the reality is that some people might continue to deny the evidences of their eyes and of their brains. I'm incapable of doing that to myself. And there is nothing about what the man has done to suggest that he is deserving of getting even a poultry farm, as far as I'm concerned. All these hyperboles and propaganda. Look at the road that they are destroying again, Ojo-Elegbayaba Road, because of the metro line that they are taking to the place. They just repaired that road. They knew that they always knew they were bringing a metro line. They needed to build that. And so you find a situation where they talk about a master plan, but there is nothing suggestive of a master plan in the way the state has been ruled. It's been an ad hoc situation where what will bring the most benefit to the shareholders of Jagaban PLC have been the motivating factor at any point in time, not the people's interest.
Okay, so how do we now get Nigeria going forward and getting the people, you spoke about the Nigerians being able, the victims of Nigeria being able to rise up and speak and determine who they want. When you have a lot of them who are largely illiterate, 20-something million people out of school, almost 80-something or 70-something% of the population don't know left from right, especially the rural population. How are we going to motivate them and encourage them and let them know how they can rise up and stop being victims and decide on these roads to a new Nigeria? What do you think can be done to encourage them or to make this possible?
Unfortunately for Nigerians, particularly over the last 20 years or thereabout, there has been a conscious weaponization of ignorance and then poverty. This has preconditioned the Nigerian to accept all kinds of lies, not to interrogate the issues, and to settle for primordial sentiments when they need to take key decisions. However, what I have found is that in the last 2 to 3 months, particularly in the immediate aftermath of EndSARS, the Nigerian youth have grown pretty much a lot more conscious than they have ever been, and they have become more energized and involved. In their being energized and involved, they have also taken on the task of educating those who are within their sphere of influence. This, of course, must be accelerated, and this, of course, must proliferate. We must have more of these engagements. And I am confident that, my people have a proverb in Yoruba land. They say, "Tiya oba kari ki to gbon." Until suffering has been sufficiently democratized, it is next to impossible for you to find a corporate solution. The 7.5 years of Buhari's misrule of Nigeria has been very, very good in training the Nigerian to look before they leap. The major sufferers and victims of the Buhari years have been those who really, really considered him their kids and kin. The people of Kankara are Fulanis. The people of Katsina are largely Fulanis. Zamfara is evenly split. In fact, once upon a time, we would never have known that there was anything called Hausa and then Fulani on one side. We used to think of them as one. What you find today is that the years of Buhari's misrule has sufficiently mobilized the people to the point where they are beginning to understand that they must look beyond tribe. They must look beyond religion. They must find the common purposes. And when you look across Nigeria, you find quickly that the same things that afflicts the Fulani afflicts the Igbo. It afflicts the Ijaw, it afflicts the Yoruba, it afflicts the people of the Efik, the Edo. There is a community of suffering that has come to unite Nigerians like never before. Once upon a time, it used to be that when your kinsman is the president, you gain some level of succor, or so they used to think. But now, you have a situation where suffering has been sufficiently democratized in Nigeria. So yes, we still have a lot of work to do. We still need to engage with our people, especially those who have the capacity to reach out to them. The young people, they must talk to their folks. They must go back to their peers. But we are better today than where we were in 2019. In 2019, in 2015, 2011, and the past elections, primordial sentiments went a long way in guiding the choices that people made. I am sure you still have elements of that working this time around, but it is not the same any longer. Nigerians have been sufficiently traumatized under Buhari that I believe they have learned a lot more than they used to. So we would have situations where a few will still vote based on is my tribesman or we're from the same religious background, but the opportunities that exist in 2023 for a turnaround are much better than they have ever been. Yes, we have work to do and we should. We can't take anything for granted, but it's not the way it used to be. This election is going to be different.
Okay, so what's going to make this election different? For example, let me give you one or two things that has been flying around. Number one, Obi, as it were, mainly social media, and who is on social media is not a grassroots person as such. Number two, no structure. He has no structure, blah, blah, blah. Number three, no, the North would probably not vote for an Igbo man, and there's no obvious penetration strategy of reaching out to the people in the North and getting them to sort of like support him. Do you have any opinion on this, or rather not comment on it?
It is actually quite interesting that those who started the story of Obi has no structure are the ones who are the most scared of Obi's candidacy today. Yes, it does not have the kind of structure, because when they are talking about structure, they are talking about their MC Mushroom picking, the MC Oluomos of this world, those who carry guns and begin to go around to steal ballot papers and strong-arm people. He probably, he is famous for saying he's not giving shishi. So when you have a politician coming out to say, I know they give shishi, it is very easy for them to say he does not have structure. But it's very interesting that the same Obi who does not have structure is the one on behalf of whom you're having spontaneous rallies across the length and breadth of Nigeria, self-financed by those who are trooping out in their numbers for him. If you have 10 people trooping out for Emilokon or Atiku, it will be because they have bought at least 8 of them at a minimum. So when we are talking structures, let's be careful that perhaps this is time when Nigeria will learn that structure is only ever about the people. The people have always been discounted in Nigeria. Our opinions have never really mattered to the rulers or ruiners of Nigeria. But for once, as I said before, this is a leadership recruitment process. The Nigerian people have by themselves decided that they are going to recruit their next president, and they have taken it upon themselves. And you can see it across the length and breadth of Nigeria, not only in the Southwest. In fact, the place where you will find the least demonstration of support for Obi, at least public demonstration, is in the Southeast, where the man himself comes from. In the North, Nasarawa State had a massive rally on the street. The El Rufai had to ban public procession to stop the one that was planned by supporters in Kaduna. I have no doubt in my mind that Obi has caught the imagination of young Nigerians. I said in one intervention recently that Nigeria has become a very hopeless place. The nature of human spirit is that we must have hope in our spirits for us to get up in the morning and be able to face the day and to believe that the day will be better than the one we lived yesterday. What Obi has done, and I believe it's not really him, it is us who are investing our hopes in him. But we have invested our hope in a man who appears to be different from the norm, who also has a track record of having worked in the state and demonstrably living the state better than he met it. When you see all of that in the midst of the despondency that has become the lot of Nigerians under Buhari's regime, what you find is that we've all latched on to the hope that he might somehow take us to a better place. That hope that he might take us to a better place has informed the level of unprecedented mass support that the man is enjoying. I don't expect that the traditional enemies of the Nigerian peoples would fold their hands. They would, of course, bring the kind of slander and the lies and the hyperboles and everything, but it is up to those of us who believe in the hope carried by Peter Obi to go out there, convince the others who might still be skeptical, convince those who have given up hope in the Nigerian process, because if you look at the last election, out of a voting population of, I believe, 86 million or thereabout, I know it's above 81 million, I was told. You had only 27 million people voting. That is suggestive of a people who have given up on a system. But in that same system where people have given up hope, you are now seeing a renewal of hope, which has led to spontaneous outbursts all over the country where people are rallying in support of a candidate who is not giving shishi. That is suggestive of the fact that there is something new about to happen. The Nigerian state has a young population. The bulk of the voters in Nigeria today, they might not all be on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, but a bulk of them are sufficiently educated and are involved in this process. It will actually shock the traditional politicians such as the Milokon and Atiku. I believe they will be sufficiently shocked in the coming election. It was Peter Side, the gentleman who started Stanbic. I listened to him a few months ago, and he was giving a statistical breakdown of the Nigerian voting population. And then they did an opinion poll where almost 60% of Nigerians were making clear that they are tired of the traditional parties, the PDP and the APC. All this tells us that 2023 is shaping up to be a different scenario entirely. We will see what will happen in 2023, but I believe that we are on the cusp of something different. And it is up to those of us who are sufficiently conscious to drag along those who are being left behind or might be left behind. But 2023 is not going to be business as usual. Something different is about to happen.
Thank you very much. There was a name you mentioned also that I was going to ask you about, Mr. Atiku Abubakar. Some people have said that, well, Obi sour grapes is because they weren't going to pick him in PDP. He jumped out. He had actually wanted to be vice to Atiku Abubakar. He's also part of this whole PDP racket. And they've said that Atiku Abubakar seems to be like a pair of safe hands. That we've seen what he did as VP to Obasanjo, also identifying talents. He's been close to governance. He speaks very well. He's stable. His health seems okay. And that why don't we go to this pair of safe hands that we seem to have? What's your opinion?
You see, Mr. Atiku Abubakar had a boss, General Olusegun Obasanjo, a man who I do not have much time for. But Obasanjo did a fantastic job for all of us. He gave glowing testaments and testimonies regarding Mr. Atiku. He was particularly clear about the kleptomaniacal tendencies of Mr. Atiku. Those are Obasanjo's testimonies, not mine. He then went on to list several other attributes of Mr. Abubakar that makes it clear that he's unfit for the purpose that he's seeking. He makes it clear that the man's sole interest in power is self-aggrandizement. He made it very clear that the man in question does not have the public good or interest at heart. But beyond that, let us deal with the specifics of age and capacities. Mr. Atiku Abubakar is well over 70. Beyond his time as the vice president of Nigeria, the only thing that has distinguished him are his many dalliances with different kinds of shady characters, including Jefferson, who had served time in America for corrupt enrichment, and his co-accused happens to be Mr. Atiku Abubakar. So when they begin to talk about the identification of talent, does not mean that the lie will become the truth. The lie is the lie, and the truth is the truth. And the fact is that Mr. Atiku Abubakar does not have a record in the public space that is suggestive of a capacity to turn Nigeria around. Let me repeat what I had said before. Buhari has destroyed Nigeria. It has been destroyed beyond repairs. You actually have to reimagine Nigeria and then begin to sell your new vision of that Nigeria to the Nigerian people so that they might be persuaded to come along in the arduous task of rebuilding it. The Bible is clear. It says, old men shall dream dreams, and then the young shall see vision. What vision is an Atiku Abubakar going to be seeing in his old age? He should be with his grandchildren, have them on his laps. He can dance all he wants. He can marry a new bride tomorrow. It makes no difference to the fact that he's an old man. There is nothing he has done in his past that recommends him for the future that we need to be heading to. He does not even appear to have a clear understanding of just how bad things have become. And as far as I'm concerned, he is not in my consideration. I do not see, but I have said this before and I'll repeat it again. It is very good that the PDP and the APC have presented the two candidates that they have presented, because the two of them appear to be one. As far as I'm concerned, they're like twins. So once you've seen one, you've seen the other. Frankly, I do not, for the life of me, know exactly what it is that any one of these aged men who should be at home taking care of their grandchildren, I don't know what it is that they want to offer Nigerian with its youth population and with their tired vision. I don't understand what it is that they are looking for, but I do not consider them candidates to be contemplated at all. They are the same.
Thank you very much. We're soon going to be taking some questions from the floor so that we don't, I don't monopolize the thing. A few people want to ask you questions. I see one or two people have raised up their hands, and there's some things that have been popping up on the screen. But let me just ask you very quickly, if you can give us 3, 4, 5 points agenda of what Nigerians should be doing right now to do their best to create a new Nigeria come 2023 with the facts that we have on the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we can use and tell Nigerians that, see, this new Nigeria is possible. This is the direction in which it is possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things we must all do to try and make it happen.
I believe that whether we like it or not, there is great urgency and need to restructure the Nigerian state. All the problems we are encountering today were present at the foundation of Nigeria. The only thing that is different is that at that time, the Nigerians were able to speak to each other and agree solutions to the problems that they all freely identified. That was how come Nigeria settled on federalism as the system of government, as the structure of the state. It is also the reason why it was easy for Nigerians to settle on a parliamentary system as the way to govern Nigeria. This winner-take-all, that is the presidential system, is actually an imposition of the military after they took over governance in 1966. I am not sure how far back we might be able to travel because we need to travel back before we can move forward. The cost of governance has become prohibitive, so it is critical that Nigerians are able to sit down with themselves, look to the way we are governing ourselves, and critically determine what path lays to the future. But we cannot escape restructuring Nigeria. That is one. The second thing is that the Nigerian people themselves must take hard looks in the mirror and tell ourselves, no matter how well you restructure Nigeria, if there is no moral revolution and regeneration within the Nigerian space, Nigeria will still not move forward because it is Nigerians who have ruined Nigeria. And it has not been only the ruiners, those who call themselves rulers. It has also been with the connivance and acquiescence of the victims. So we ourselves must take hard looks at ourselves and determine that we cannot continue like this. Because if we kept going on the trajectory that we are on, Nigeria will eventually implode and die. Sufficient numbers of the victims, north, east, west, and south, are already saying they've had enough of Nigeria. You can't even talk to some Nigerians about Nigeria any longer. If they are not looking for Biafra, they are looking for Ituah Republic. And nobody is looking at the consequence or the way to get there without bloodshed. These are factors that we must all address because it is not sufficient that you say Nigeria is one indissoluble, other one is just rhetoric. At the end of the day, if it is not working for the people, it will die. Regardless of what some of us might say, it might be that it will be a violent breakup, but without addressing the foundational problems that are plaguing Nigeria today, it will be next to impossible to maintain it as one country. That is the second. The third thing is that we have neglected education because the Nigerian state has weaponized ignorance. And once a person is ignorant, his poverty is assured. So there is a need to pay close attention to the educational sector, find a way to reimagine even the entire curriculum. It is quite interesting that we are able to read the Bible, for instance, in practically all Nigerian languages, but you cannot find mathematical textbooks in all Nigerian languages. Outside the English language, maybe the major languages, you might find arithmetic textbooks. But why is it impossible to indigenize our educational system? I don't understand this, but it is critical that if we must move forward into the future, we must look beyond the ability to speak English language as an indicator or a marker of education. Speaking English language is not sufficient education. There are several people speaking in the nonsense every day, eloquently, in English language. But once a person is incapable of a credit pass in mathematics, he cannot read almost any course in the university. And yet, several geniuses have been left to waste. You look at the educational sector today, it is almost impossible to find a child of the Nigerian middle class in a Nigerian university. If they cannot afford America or the UK, they are in Ghana or they are in Kenya Some people are even taking their children for secondary schools abroad now. That is indicative of the complete collapse of the educational sector. A man has built Lagos for the last 23 years, and yet there is no healthcare facility in Lagos State that is sufficiently good enough to take care of his own health challenges. So when you look to in fact, there is a complete breakdown of the social order. These are things that must be addressed urgently. These are my views, but not necessarily in that order, but most importantly, restructuring, it is extremely urgent. Moral revolution, it is extremely urgent. Our educational system, extremely urgent. Then security, if I may use that as the last point. When people are perennially hungry, it becomes impossible to talk to them about obeying the law when the law does not appear to obey anything that makes life worthwhile for them. So it is critical that insecurity must be addressed. The first task of the state is the security of lives and properties. But that is one area where the Nigerian state has failed abysmally, especially in the last 7 to 10 years. It didn't start with Buhari, but it has become accelerated and aggravated under his watch. So yes, these are the issues I believe are very urgent and must be addressed.
Thank you very much. Do you think, how are we going to get most of Nigerians to vote right? What sort of interaction are we going to have with them? Have you thought about that? Or do you think that it's going to be business as usual? I mean, you've sort of answered it, but let me just have you reiterate that, how we can get them to vote right this time around.
I think that the traditional, if you recall, for the last 20 years or thereabout, election has been about people who call themselves our rulers hiring space in stadiums. And then when they get into this stadium, they set up speakers. They might even bring a musician to come and sing, and then the people will clap, and then everybody will go home. And then on election day, they've even evolved things they call Dibosebe. But if you paid attention to the election in particularly, I think it was Anambra that threw up Soludo, people were turning down money. They refused to accept these incentives. That is because they were sufficiently connected to the issues, and being connected to the issues, they refused to sell their vote. I would believe that this time around, there is an urgent task for those of us who are sufficiently conscious and understand the issue. There's an urgent task for us. We should go out, speak to the people, let them understand the issues, connect them to the issues. Let them understand that the demand comes from your tribe does not necessarily mean that he's going to be able to deliver on what you need to make life tolerable. That demand comes from your religious background does not mean that he's going to be able to deliver on what you need to make life tolerable, even for your children or their children's children. So I think that because of the pivotal nature of the coming election, perhaps because of the extensive suffering that has been endured under the rule of General Buhari, the coming election is already on its own, shaping up to be completely different from anything we have had. And I am confident that it will not be business as usual. I am confident about that. I, on my own, I'll continue with my public engagement. I'll be giving as many lectures as I can. And when the ban on campaigns are lifted, I intend to be part of the Peter Obi campaign train, especially in the southwestern part of Nigeria, where I can speak the language of the people that he needs to be speaking with. I intend to be there. And I encourage each and every one of us to also be involved, because I think it was Plato or one of those Greek philosophers. He says, when the wise abandons governance, they must necessarily suffer the reign of fools. And that is what has happened to Nigerians. We must get off our high horses and get involved, or else we'll continue to see the elevation of Agberos in our society, riding roughshod over those of us who consider ourselves too wise or too elitist to be involved in politics.
Great. Let's take a few questions. There are about 4 or 5 people who want to ask you questions. Kim of Africa, please identify yourself and ask your question. Ugochukwu, Chappie, my friend and my brother Tayo Aluko. I'm sure he's out there in the UK. Maybe we'll take this 4 first and then take another 4 after that. Please go straight to the question or the comment you want to make. Everybody has just 30 seconds so that we can take as many as we can. So Kim of Africa, Ugochukwu, Chappie, and Tayo. Thank you, one after the other. Ugochukwu, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir, and good evening to our boss, the one I refer to as my mentor, Sir Dele Farotimi. I deeply appreciate you for the immeasurable work you are doing to ensure that Nigeria is resuscitated. Because for me, Nigeria is on life support, and we need to collectively work, put up effort. We need to collectively work to ensure we resuscitate it, because this is the only country we have. So I would like to go straight to my question. My question is, because in Southeast, the southeastern part of the country is where I see as the only, or probably the only place where Peter Obi, which is the candidate we are supporting, can give an undivided vote. So, and here we have some certain persons or great number of persons who are, who are strong in some other convictions that are partaking in civic responsibilities or civic duties like election. That is the IPOB people. How can we engage those persons? And as well, even when we must have realized our mission, how can we engage those ones who are somebody like Nnamdi Kanu, who are strong in their conviction, who we know that they don't believe that Nigeria will, and they are championing that everybody should go their separate ways. My question is, before the election, how can we engage these people who don't believe that election is the best way to go? And after the election, or even before, how can we engage their leaders?
Let's leave it. How do we what?
Engage their leaders who are the persons championing this cause. Like, yes.
All right, no problem. I think that's sufficient. Dele, just hold on to that. Let's take a question from Chappie so that you can answer the 4 questions at the same time. Chappie, you want to unmute yourself?
I wanted to. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What's your question, please? Quickly.
I want to say that we strongly believe that this election will be different, but then we also have the problem of getting the ordinary people on the streets involved in the process. Like, what I think is happening right now is a consciousness that is sweeping through the country, but it will take a lot of effort. So my question is, how do we get the ordinary people on the streets, the bus drivers, the conductors, the artisans, to key into this vision? Because we all want to see a new Nigeria that really works.
Okay, thank you very much, Chappie. How do we get the artisans to key into the vision? Thank you. Tayo, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, good evening. You talk of structural reform, and my understanding is that one of the biggest problems is what I have heard you very eloquently describe in the past as the fraud of the 1999 Constitution, which some people think is such a problem that, I'm talking of Ninas, for example, is such a problem that these elections are a waste of time. Even if that's not the case, presidential candidates should at least speak to that. I have heard Omoyele Sowore talk about revisiting the Constitution. I don't know what Peter Obi has said about it. So I would actually want to know what you see as the problem with Sowore
that has made you favor Peter Obi? Thank you.
All right. I don't know the person who had wanted to ask the question before, but maybe you should take those three questions, Dele, and then we go to the next round of
Okay.
four.
You see, the first question came from Bochuku, and he was talking about how to get IPOB on board. I am of the opinion that IPOB is merely an expression of the people's frustration with a system that has marginalized them and kept them outside of the loop of governance. Now, IPOB does not exist in a vacuum. Its legitimacy is derived from the support of the people of the Southeast. The same IPOB was in place when elections were held in Anambra, and that happened because the people of Anambra were sufficiently mobilized and they were sufficiently energized into wanting to change their governance, and they were involved. They didn't vote for the highest bidder, and IPOB was generally quiet through that election. I do not foresee anything being different in the presidential election. It might very well be that we need to consider that IPOB exists with the support of the people in the region. When that support is for an election to hold and that Peter Obi should be elected, I will imagine that you will see a calm down, a ratcheting down of the violence, even if only to see just exactly how far the electoral process might take us in the direction of change. So I believe that it is a function of how well we're able to persuade IPOB and every other secessionist agitators to calm down and ratchet down the violence. How that happens is a function of electioneering, is a function of mobilization, and I am confident that good conscience will speak in the East, and we should have some ratcheting down of the violence. The second question deals with how do we get the ordinary people? Well, Chappie asked this question, and I addressed it earlier on. It is those of us who believes that Nigeria can be saved or might be saved and can be changed. We have a duty to educate the less informed. When the people within your sphere of influence, whether that be the bus driver, whether that is the mechanic, whether that is the driver who drives, whoever that person might be, that you come into contact with on a day-to-day basis, we all have to become itinerant preachers. You have to preach this gospel of change. You have to reach out to people. You can't sit in a cocoon. It could even be your friends who might ordinarily not be interested and might have given up on Nigeria. You have a duty to reach out to them and to get them to buy into the idea of change. The third question is the gentleman who asks what it is about Peter Obi's position that is leading me to support him over my friend Dele Farotimi. You see, we tend to have this illusion that Nigeria is a state that has citizens. It is not a state with citizens. It is actually a state made up of ethnicities. And the issue and principle of federal character did not come in as a result of Abacha's zoning arrangement. It was there in 1954. It was written into the 1960 Constitution. Nigeria is a federation, and when it comes to appointments into offices, federal character must be reflected. For me, and I had shared this conviction with my close circle of friends, including Yele himself. I had shared this conviction since at least 2 years back, that the next president of Nigeria must be of Igbo extraction. Not only did I share this conviction, I made clear that it wouldn't just be any person of Igbo extraction. It must be a candidate who understands the urgent need for restructuring. I have been opportune to sit in 2 meetings involving Mr. Peter Obi. The first was a meeting of the SMBLF, that is the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, where the people who sat in that meeting interrogated Mr. Peter Obi to ask him specifically what his position is related to restructuring. He made it clear to all of us that he was committed to the cause of restructuring because it is clear that you really cannot do anything with Nigeria without restructuring it. I am confident that by the time his manifesto is out, we will find that restructuring is one of the cardinal principles upon which he has anchored his manifesto. So when it comes to a conceptual understanding of the need to restructure Nigeria, I am sufficiently persuaded by Mr. Peter Obi's understanding of the urgency and of the need. When you now look to my friend Yele, Yele is eminently qualified to be the president of Nigeria. But for me, in my idiocy, and let me consider idiocy, I am convinced that you cannot ask a people not to leave Nigeria and at the same time unjustly deny them the opportunity to lead the country that you are demanding that they cannot leave. The Yoruba man has been president for 8 years. We've been vice president for 8 years. If we are going to be truthful with ourselves, and we have said that the presidency of Nigeria should be zoned between the North and the South. The North has 3 zones: the Northwest, the Northeast, and the North Central. The South has 3 zones: the Southwest, the Southeast, and the South-South. Now that power has been zoned to the South, a Yoruba man is standing up and saying Emi lo kan. But that same Yoruba of the Southwest, we've been president already. We've been vice president. We are the current vice president. I am not a supporter of zoning. I deprecate it in the extreme because it is something that has arisen out of the jettisoning of the original agreements that found Nigeria. It was when Nigeria has been restructured into the monstrosity that it is today that we now brought up the issue of zoning so that at least you can rotate this unjust monstrosity that has become part of our national life. In the face of that, equity and justice demands that the next president of Nigeria must be of Igbo extraction. If it was an Oji Uzo Kalu that has been brought up, I probably will not look in his, in fact, I definitely will not look in his direction. If it was some decrepit person of no pedigree that had been brought up, I will not simply say that because it's of Igbo extraction, I will support him. But there is a compelling argument for zoning to the Southeast, and there is a compelling candidate in the race of Southeastern origin. I cannot in good conscience turn my back on that candidate and say that I will follow Yele Sowore. And I concede and I continue to say he's eminently qualified in his own right. But I cannot look beyond that qualified candidate of Igbo origin in this coming election. Nigeria is at a precipice. And if it must be saved, it can only be saved on the principle of equity and justice. And those twin principles leaves me no choice but to support Peter Obi.
Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next set of 4. Eli Ofi, Olamide Idowu, Kwaram Adeleke, and Ifeoluwa Adesanya. Please, no need for any niceties. Just state your question or your comment, and we will note them, and our speaker will respond to all 4 of them at once. Thank you. Straight to the point. 30 seconds.
Hello, Mr. Dele. Thank you for taking the time out to be here. My question is, I mean, we've had people in the past who've talked about restructuring, and we've actually noticed that they tend to go in the same direction by not doing what exactly they promised. Not just Peter Obi, we've had other people talk about restructuring. But how do we create a balance between going ahead with the election and dealing with a systemic failure? Because we're dealing with a regime change as against a system that produces leaders that are incapable of doing what is right. So how do we create that balance? That's my question.
Thank you very much. Olamide Idowu.
I'm trying to, okay. Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Thank you very much. My question will go straight before I commend my great pastor and my good brother who I've never met before, but we'll be meeting online. And the question is this. I live in London. I am the president of all Ekiti people in the UK. I coordinate Do It Right Africa globally. We are committed to the cause of making Nigeria a good place. How do we contribute to finance Peter Obi, because we are lining up behind this same thought? Thank you.
Thank
And
you, Olamide. I don't know if our speaker is qualified to answer that question, but I'll allow him to speak for himself. And if he's not...
I think, sir, our speaker is a lawyer, and we are thinking about how we can legally contribute to supporting Peter Obi, because this is a job that has to be done in the interest of Nigeria. Thank you, Pastor.
Okay, no problem. If that's the perspective you are coming from, no problem. Mr. Adeleke, please. Kowan. Unmute yourself, straight to the point.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Dele, for all you have said since. I must say, I've shared similar visions and view towards the subject of today. And I want to thank the host and Mr. Dele for all you have said since. And you spoke a lot about Peter Obi and how fantastic he looks and the track record he has. Considering the current state of Nigeria, Mr. Dele, do you think Peter Obi has the capacity to run the current state of Nigeria, considering the current state of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. If you're lower this one, please, straight to your question. Koran, please mute yourself. There's noise in your background.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. My question. Hello.
Go ahead, yes.
Yeah, thank you. My question is very simple. When we look at Nigerian situation, poverty is nothing that we can write off. And I think not only financial poverty or economic poverty, to put it in frame, we have poverty of knowledge in Nigeria. Because I think the question I want to ask really is, what other plans do our speaker have in mind or put in place? Or should I say, what other plans should we put in place in educating the public, the general public, most especially the youth? Because this is not about education, it's about educating them about the value of their vote. How can we do that? And what other plans should we put in place? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adesanya. Maybe we should take one more very quickly. James Palm. Can you unmute yourself? Maybe he's having difficulty. All right, just be on standby, Mr. Palm or Reverend Palm. Dele, can you?
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Are you ready, Mr. Palm?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to ask our guest what his opinion is regarding the suggestion by Chief Afe Babalola that Nigeria should go for an interim government.
Okay, thank you. Good question. Dele, over to you, please. You have 5 questions to quickly respond.
Yeah. That's my question. Yes. What does he think about Chief Afe Babalola's suggestion that we should go for an interim government?
We got that. We got that. Okay, thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
Now, the first of this series of questions asked what's the balance between restructuring and I didn't get the second part, but I think, anyway, people would come forth and speak to restructuring. Even Buhari spoke to restructuring in 2015. And I believe in 2018, if he inaugurated the El Rufai committee that was meant to advise on restructuring. But when we listen to a person speak to restructuring, one of the first things that we must necessarily do is interrogate the credibility of the person who is speaking to restructuring. If a man like Tinubu speaks to me about restructuring, I must, of course, take that with a heavy dose of salt, because his vice presidential candidate is on record, on film, speaking passionately to the fact that, in fact, if I may quote him, he said, restructuring my putsch. He made it clear that restructuring is something that is to be embraced only by fools, and he had no interest whatsoever in restructuring. Mr. Tinubu himself has never once, at least not in the last 7 years, spoke about the need for restructuring. When he was busy jostling with Obasanjo in relation to the local governments that he created in Lagos, rightly so, if I might add, but that were never recognized by the National Assembly and thus never gazetted and has remained ungazetted in spite of the fact that the government he helped to midwife is the one in power today. Mr. Tinubu has kept quiet on the subject of restructuring. So I am left with very little choice but to believe a man who has said things in the past and done exactly as he has said he would do. And again, if you might go back to where we started this discussion, I spoke to the fact that we are in a leadership recruitment process. Peter Obi is part of a movement. He's just merely the arrowhead of that movement. The Nigerian people are the ones who are speaking loudly about the need and the urgency of restructuring. And the man has identified with that. As I said, I sat down in 2 meetings where he was present. I have spoken to one, the other I prefer to leave, but I heard him sufficiently, and I am persuaded and I believe that he will keep his word. Now, you must also remember that it takes more than the president to decree restructuring. It has to go through the National Assembly, and as moribund as that National Assembly might be, that represents the existing legal order in Nigeria. But I am also familiar with the fact that when leadership is provided by the presidency, practically nothing is impossible for the Nigerian president. He's almost more powerful than the American president when it comes to his capacity to enforce his will. So if we have a president who is genuinely interested in restructuring, and given the fact that where we are today is indicative of the need, there is an urgent need that nobody is denying any longer, I believe very strongly that we will not have a better opportunity to bring about restructuring employing what is admittedly a flawed process. The second question speaks to how do we finance Peter Obi? Well, as Pastor Ituah has rightly pointed out, I'm not part of his finance committee, but I am certain because of the controversies that have been raised in recent times by those who are claiming that he should be disqualified because of the fundraising attempts abroad. I know as a fact that whilst you cannot donate to the political party from the diaspora, you can donate to his political action committee. And I'm certain that in due course, this will be publicly made known to everybody, and those who are willing to contribute to that fund will be able to do so. The next question speaks to Peter Obi's capacity. Let me say this. Capacity is relative. We are faced, every time you are presented with a basket of choices, you have to look to what is before you, and on the basis of what is presented to you, you then decide what the best option might be. I've looked at what is before Nigerians. I've not only looked to the pedigrees or the persons, I've also looked to their capacity to appeal to sufficient numbers, because at the end of the day, politics is a game of numbers. I believe that there are sufficient numbers out there to propel the movement that has Peter Obi as the arrowhead into office. That is my belief. And I believe that he has the capacity to deliver on each and every one of the desires of the Nigerian people and the things that are seriously needed in this hour, fresh ideas, the complete re-envisioning of Nigeria and its reconstruction. I believe that Peter Obi has the capacity, and these are the reasons that I am supporting him. And I believe he has the capacity to deliver on these promises. Then the gentleman who spoke to the poverty of the mind. You see, as I pointed out earlier, the Nigerian state and its rulers have weaponized ignorance. They have also weaponized poverty. So when you have a situation where a man has been rendered impoverished in the mind, because poverty begins in the mind, a man might have money and still remain poor because he has lost the capacity to envision. The capacity to envision is a prerequisite to poverty. As long as a man is still capable of envisioning, which is what actually makes us human, that you can close your eyes and see what does not exist as though it exists, then you cannot be poor, because that is when you can think up ways of creating value. You can't create value if you cannot think, if you cannot envision, if you cannot imagine. Our imagination is the seat of our ingenuity. But what has been done is that the Nigerian has been impoverished in his mind. He has been focused on survival. They have focused his attention completely on what he will eat next. They have focused his attention on surviving the insurgencies that are raging all over Nigeria. So when you see all of these things that have been thrown at the Nigerian that makes it impossible for him, you then realize that the only antidote is hope. Peter Obi has brought that hope. What we now need to do is to reach out to the Nigerian people, those people that are ordinarily left out, the youth, those who are badly educated, miseducated, or uneducated at all. We must reach out to them. That they are uneducated does not mean that they are not able to feel the pain of their Nigerian existence. Connect the dots for them. Help them to understand the need to be involved. Help them to understand the need to look beyond, oh, he's my tribesman. That is your tribesman does not necessarily mean that he is going to make a better president to bring you out of the mess you are in. These are the things that we must connect for our people. So yes, we must engage with them. We must do so in the understanding that poverty has been unleashed against them, just as ignorance has equally been unleashed against them. But it is up to those of us who believe that we know to reach out to them and to then teach them the way to come out of the mess. The last one is the one raised by the pastor. He asked the question about my opinion related to Chief Abe Babalola's suggestion of an interim government. In an ideal world, that would have been the perfect solution in Nigeria, because if we had an interim government of national unity, we could then sit down and think through our many problems and then prefer solutions and then agree on the path forward. But unfortunately, Chief Abe Babalola's suggestion is unworkable without a suspension of the current legal order. Decree 24 of 1999 is a fraudulent document foisted on Nigerians by the military. But whether we like it or not, and I don't like it, it is the existing legal order. In the absence of a coup that suspends that constitution, you cannot have an interim national government because there will be no legal basis for it to exist. In the absence of that legal order for its existence, it is a prescription for chaos, because there is no way to place it in the public space or for the people to embrace it. So it's a good suggestion, but it's a suggestion that exists only in the imagination of the gentleman who made that suggestion, because as he well knows, as long as the current legal order exists, as fraudulent as it is, you cannot have that interim government. And the same goes for, I think I missed out the part of the question asked by the gentleman who was referring to the 1999 Constitution, but it's the same answer, really. It is the existing legal order imposed by military fiat, which is why it's a decree. It is that existing legal order that makes it impossible for us to look beyond Decree 24, which calls itself the 1999 Constitution. The only thing that might happen is that when we come to a point where the Nigerian people are sufficiently mobilized to begin a campaign of perhaps a campaign of civil disobedience, to then demand that we must have a legal order that flows from the people themselves. Maybe when we come to that point, perhaps let me not even begin hypothetical situations now, but the reality is that as much as we might dislike it, and I hate it, you cannot look beyond that fraudulent decree as of today.
Okay, jolly good. Thank you very, very much. Let's take another set of questions. Galaxy Tab A, Amechi Ndili, Walter Amugo, my brother Afolabi Ajidan, and somebody, either it's Adewale Adebayo himself or somebody on his behalf. We'll take those 5 questions very, very quickly. And also, Dele, I'm going to ask that let's keep your responses short so that we can take as many questions as possible in the little time that we have left. Straight to the point, please. You have 30 seconds only to ask your question. Galaxy Tab A, I don't know who that is. Unmute yourself. Back end, let them be able to unmute. Walter Amugo. You want to unmute yourself? Afolabi Ajidan, please unmute yourself. Amechi, are you ready to ask your question now?
Sure, yeah, I can ask.
Please go ahead very quickly.
Thank you for your time. So let me pose a scenario and have you respond to it. Okay. In my view, and this is just a scenario, whether Peter Obi wins or loses, that the country is more or less headed for a some kind of endgame scenario. So let us assume that he wins. The fact remains that he will be a minority president, in the sense that he will not have a Senate that is of his party. He will not, so he will be, to all intents and purposes, a lame duck. So restructuring then becomes a virtual.
We lost you. Amici, we lost you. Okay, at least we've gotten what you've said. Peter Obi might be a minority president and will not have the capacity to pass his views through the House. Walter Amugo, please.
Okay, thank you so much. My question is, what's the chance that Peter Obi can actually structure Nigeria? And perhaps if he's unable to do that, of course, the last administration, the likes of Goodluck promised us that as well. Goodluck tried doing that, and then of course they organized the plan and everything, and at the end of the day, we didn't have any results. It just all for political whatever. But my question now is, what's the chance that Peter Obi can do this? And beside, are we just focusing on Peter Obi because he has showed us interest that he can restructure Nigeria? Well, okay, perhaps he's unable to do that.
Thank you very much. Afolabi Ajidan, please. Unmute yourself. Please allow Afolabi to unmute himself back end.
Thank you. And my question, Dele, thank you very much. Always very insightful listening to you. Always forthright. Thank you very much. My question is, you keep saying, Barry, how much also do you blame, it adds on to the previous questions of the National Assembly. Do you put on the National Assembly just rubber stamping everything that this president has wanted to do? Borrow, 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 and nothing's been going on. That's my question.
Okay, thank you very much. Walter, you wanted to finish your question? I thought we have gotten the gist of the question. Peter Obi will be a lame duck president or something like that. Yeah. Okay, if we can unmute you, we'll get you back to finish the question. But let's, Adewale Adebayo, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Adewale Adebayo, back end, please pay attention.
Not unmuting. I told him to unmute. He's not unmuting.
All right. Can you unmute Walter then? Let him finish asking his question. Walter? Walter,
yeah, thank God. Yeah, my next question is regards education. I think that the change in education didn't start today. It started back then. And again, what I'm asking the speaker, so what steps or what's expected of the citizens as regards education? Because of course, it's still the same structure we've been using before now. We move from one system to another, but it appears to be the same thing. So what is the challenge? What steps should we take further? I mean, if you have to advise the next administration as regards education, what system do we think will work best in Nigeria?
All right, thank you very much. Osarubo Egige, can you ask your question, please, very quickly?
I greet everyone in the house. My name is Osarubo Egige Omokanunwa. I just have a brief question to ask concerning this Nigeria election, the way it goes, because there are a lot of fraudulence in our elections. Number one, in the north, I think in 2011, my junior brother went there for an NYC, so he worked with the INEC. She told us that when they do their voting over there, after people finish voting, there are politicians that will bring their votes. Then when they try to counter, they will threaten them. So they have to collect that one from them. And this thing has been giving kudos to the North for a very long time. But there are a lot of things that is going on there concerning our electoral list, the way the election rigging have been happening in the North. What are we going to do about that? That is my question.
Thank you very much. Dele, please answer these questions very quickly. We still have quite a few more people who want to answer, but we may not be able to take more than another 5. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think about 2 people asked this question about Peter Obi's capacity to restructure Nigeria in the face of the likelihood that he might not have the parliamentary majority. You see, there is something that we are all ignoring when we ask this question. And what we are ignoring is the fact that the presidential election and the elections into the National Assembly are usually held on the same day. The 2 elections are on the same day. You vote the presidency, you vote the Senate and the House of Reps at the same time. My belief is that if Peter Obi is to be elected, and I'm sure by the time election campaign starts, the importance of having a parliamentary majority would be highlighted for the electorate. Now, if this proves to be inadequate, I must also now take the same argument that had been used earlier, which was the one where we were hearing how the current president constantly gets the National Assembly to rubber stamp and give him anything he wants, including the ruinous loans that he has been taking on behalf of the Nigerian people. I need us all to equally pay close attention to the fact that the need for restructuring appears to have become sufficiently acknowledged across the length and breadth of Nigeria, even though I must quickly point out that it has meant different things to different parts. But there are things that we cannot generally agree on that are urgent and in need of restructuring. So where you have unanimity, regardless of the political affiliation or the region, those ones should be able to go pretty fast. You might not be able to have the wholesale restructuring that are desired by the likes of me, but there must be some movement, especially when it comes to fiscal federalism, state police, the governance structure. I believe that these are things that should be quickly agreed, regardless of who controls the National Assembly. Now, the key question is political will. The current president does not have any interest, even though he has used it sufficiently to campaign on 2 different occasions. He has not demonstrated any interest or even a grasp of what is meant or required if we're talking about restructuring Nigeria. So let me not belabor the issue. I believe that there is no basis for thinking that Peter Obi might not have a governing majority in the National Assembly. If he should win the presidency, there is a good chance that he would have more than enough. At least he should have a sizable chunk of the National Assembly as well. That is one. The second of these issues is what do we do with education? Well, you have asked my opinion. I'm not suggesting that this is because I have not asked Mr. Peter Obi what his policy on education would be, but you've asked my opinion. And my own opinion really is that we've gotten to the point where, yes, we cannot leave funding of education exclusively to the government, but the government must be seriously involved in the process. Nigeria has proven itself incapable of a coherent education policy. And that education policy, the education policy that we have had for some years, is unfit for purpose. When a person goes to school and is learning A for apple, B for whatever it is meant for in Nigeria, and the English language remains the language of instruction, I think that we need to rethink all of this. We should be, when I went to school, Yoruba language was the language of instruction until I got to primary 4. In fact, Yoruba language was used to teach me English language until I got to primary 4, when English language was introduced. So I believe that there is a need to revisit. There are people who are better informed about educational policy and curriculum that should be involved, but we need to do a root and branch review of our education policy. This is my own view, and as I've said, I'm not an expert, but I see sufficient basis to begin to say that we need to do a root and branch review of our educational system. Then the gentleman spoke to the electoral fraudulence that has always attended our elections. I must quickly ask that we pay attention to the amended Electoral Act of 2022. What it does is that for the first time in Nigeria, if we, the electorate, should faithfully monitor these elections and make sure that the provisions of the Electoral Act are adhered to, we do have a chance this time around, because one, unlike in the past when the ward was the collation point for election results, what we get now is that the polling unit where you vote has become the collation point. The Electoral Act is very clear. It says that at the end of voting, the election result should be uploaded into the server, which is in the cloud. That result is known to all the party agents in the polling center, that polling booth. Unlike before, when they needed to when the electoral officer would have to take it to the ward level, which would ordinarily comprise of about 11 to 15 polling booths, and then they do the collation, which is where the wuru usually happens. The result that is taken from the polling unit disappears, and the new result comes up by the time they get to the electoral collation point at the local government level. The Electoral Act gives us a unique opportunity to see our will reflected. I am not discounting the capacity of the Nigerian political class to make sure that our will does not matter. I do not discount their capacity. I'm not suggesting at any level that it is El Dorado all of a sudden. If it will work or it will not work will be a function of our own readiness to make sure that we hold the electoral officers to account. But at least for once, there is a chance. However, I did deliver a series of lectures. I believe that was in January, February this year. I titled it, Your PVC or Your Gun. I am not an advocate of violence, but I do know that those who make peaceful change impossible facilitate violent changes. If the capacity of the people to effect changes peacefully using the electoral process is thwarted, what you will find is the legitimization of those who are looking to change this same system that we have all agreed needs to be changed violently. At that point, they would have delegitimized voices such as mine who are preaching peace, because I will not be able to preach peace to the oppressed. So we have a last chance. That's why 2023 election is pivotal in my view. We cannot stop them from doing what they would usually do if they refuse to obey the laws and follow the process as laid down by the Electoral Act, but we shall be trying our best, and that is the law as of today. I believe I've answered all the questions asked of me so far.
I think so. We'll take just the last set of questions right now. Mr. Adewale Adebayo, presidential candidate, please unmute yourself. I think we've tried very hard to unmute you. Back end, please make sure that he can unmute himself and ask the question. After that, Champ Ajose. After that, Victor Abisoye. After that, Johnson Udoko. And after that, Idi Audu. Quick, straight to the point. And after that, we will close. Thank you, everyone. Right. Adewale Adebayo, campaign team. Where are you now?
I think
ask your question.
Ask their question.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Yeah, Pastor, good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. This
Good
is
evening.
Pastor Ade Alabi from Adewale Adebayo's campaign, presidential campaign organization.
Okay, please go ahead.
Greetings to our guests. Number one question is he only Mr. Peter Obi that have agreed to restructuring among all the presidential candidates? That's number one. Number two, can you also vouch for Mr. Peter Obi in terms of the audacity and the courage in order to do the needful in some critical areas of the sector, like the insecurities, the investment, and the other areas? We lead because of the relationship. Will we be able to face it? Because we all knew, as we are deceiving ourselves, that our problems in this country is not ethnicity, is not tribe, is not religion, it's rather our leader, because they are anti-masses. So will you be able to fight for him that you'll be able to do the needful and the audacity to tackle these things without having sympathy for his allies? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Champa Joseph.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor. Mr. Dele Farotimi, of school. My question is, you said earlier that intellectuals, which in our society should be participating in the political system, and you being an intellectual and well popular in this country, are you planning to test for an election? We'll be seeing you contesting for an election soon. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Victor Abisoye, please.
Good evening, sirs. I just want to ask the doctor if you agree with, like you said initially, that Nigeria's presidency is by representation. That is, society is presented to represent their region. Have we said, or have we polled the Igbos? As the Igbos come out to tell us that Peter Obi is their candidate, or do we want to repeat the event of 1999, where the other regions chose a candidate, a Yoruba candidate for Yoruba against their wish, which delegitimized Obasanjo's presidency? Are we planning to repeat that? Thank you.
All right. Next person, please, Mr. Idi Johnson Idoko.
Okay. Good evening, sir, and thank you very much for this opportunity. And I would like to be brief for the sake of time. I really would like to know the opinion of Mr. Rotimi, particularly as concerning Peter Obi or the Labour Party's manifesto. As it were, we have less than 20 days to the campaigns. And up till now, we do not have a manifesto, a Peter Obi manifesto or a Labour Party manifesto. So on what particularly are we running on? Thank you, please.
Well, I'm not sure if Mr. Farotimi is able to answer that question. He's not representing Peter Obi campaign here. He's just expressing his own personal opinion, but let him be the judge of that. Idi Audu, please. Last question.
Thank you very much. And thank you so far with the presentation. I would like to say that our problems is not just the issue of the president. For example, the National Assembly, what can we do to see to it that they represent us properly? And if they are not representing us, we can call them back because they are part of the problem. Thank you.
Okay. Dele, can you please?
I will start with the question asked by the gentleman from Adewale's campaign organization, the Reverend gentleman. Now, it is not only Peter Obi that has indicated a willingness and a readiness to restructure, but amongst all the people that have indicated this, I am obliged to pick one and pitch my tent with that person. I have already explained that in my own idiocy, I am of the honest opinion that it is the turn, just like somebody will say Emilokan. I am of the opinion that it is Ibolokan. As stupid as that might sound, that is what Nigeria has compelled us to embrace. And in my own view, that is the person I have settled on. However, having settled on him, I am also not, I'm not blind to the fact that there are several persons that Mr. Peter Obi has tolerated in his space that I ordinarily will not even spend any time with. Amongst them is the like of Obasanjo and of course IBB. But I need us all to understand that this is politics. I'm not a politician. He is a politician. and a politician would ask for votes wherever he finds it. I would imagine that in a Peter Obi presidency, should he peradventure become the president of Nigeria, the fact that he has asked them for their support and their vote should not automatically grant them immunity from prosecution for any of the crimes that I believe they have committed in the past. I will be the most vociferous in demanding an account from each and every one of our past rulers, and I would not believe that Mr. Peter Obi will shield them from prosecution or investigation for that matter. That they supported him should not be sufficient basis for them to escape prosecution. We're not dealing with persecution, we are saying prosecution. Prosecution should, of course, come after investigation. I would gladly volunteer to go after each and every one of those people. So that's as far as that one is concerned. So when you speak to the audacity of the man, he's not going to be a dictator. There is a system. The system that is in place, if it is enabled, should then do its job. Now, the second question relates to if I'm planning to contest for electoral office. Let me put it this way. My natural inclination is to retire into my own private space. I've wanted to write all my life. I've wanted to spend time writing. I'm no longer interested in things but if the objective realities in 2027 suggest that one must become personally involved, I assure you I would have no hesitation. I am a Nigerian who does not enjoy second citizenship of any other country. I do not have a bank account outside Nigeria. I do not have a home outside Nigeria. So I am directly affected by anything that happens within the Nigerian space. And if what it would take to change the Nigerian trajectory and the story is my own personal involvement in the electoral space, I will definitely get involved. This is the first time I'm getting involved in supporting any candidate. That is a mark of just how desperate I believe the situation has become. The third question, the person was asking if Peter Obi is the anointed candidate of the Igbo. See, in 1999, nobody asked the Yorubas who we preferred. The only thing that happened was that power was ceded to the Southwest. AD, to which I belong as a member of Afenifere, threw up Falaye, and the PDP threw up an Obasanjo. And Nigerians generally preferred the Obasanjo presidency, so they voted for him over and above our own preferred candidate. I do not believe he suffered any crisis of legitimacy, even though he himself was a resounding failure, in my opinion, which is not changed by the fact that several other people who have followed him have failed just as resoundingly as he did. The fact remains that whilst we might have power ceded to a region, it does not grant that region the veto to determine who the people will eventually vote for. After all, we still pretend that it's a democracy. Amongst the Igbo candidates that have come up, he is the person that I consider the most qualified, and it's not just on account of his Igbo ethnicity. On his own, in his own right, I consider him a good candidate, and that's why I'm supporting him. That is without prejudice to those who do not share my stupidity and who might decide to vote for a Yoruba man or even another Fulani in the person of Atiku. But me, aside from the fact that I believe that it's the turn of Ndi Igbo, I also believe that he is eminently qualified and is the right man in this time. The next one is, when is his manifesto coming? I am not part of his manifesto drafting committee, but I've had occasion to ask the same question of those who are involved. And I know as a fact that it would be released before the election campaigns will commence. I believe on the 28th of September, the manifesto would have been released before then. The last one, the question about the National Assembly. The National Assembly has for too long escaped scrutiny. We've all concentrated on the presidency. In some cases, we've concentrated on the governors. We've not really looked to the legislators. But the emerging scenario would suggest that this is about to change. A Peter Obi candidacy, for instance, has made it imperative that we look to the kind of persons we are going to be sending to the National Assembly. And this has already come up in the questions that have been asked before now. So I believe we should be getting a better crop of legislators in the coming election. And where this fails, the recourse to recall still exists as moribund and fraudulent as that constitution might be, there are clauses in that constitution that allows for the recall of legislators who have failed the people they purport to represent. I think that answers your question. I did see a gentleman, I think Afolabi, who is saying that I have not answered his question. I've had a lot of questions thrown at me. I jotted them down. I believe I did the best I could to answer them. If I've omitted to answer it, I'm sorry. Perhaps you will engage me in some other platform and I'll be glad to answer you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dele. Thank you for being on this platform. I'm told that you have to be off and we're a bit out of time, truthfully. So we will let you go, and I'm sure that when we please ask you to come back, you will come back very insightful. Although some people have commented that this seems to be like a P2B campaign, this and that. I'm sure that was not what was intended. That is just what came out. We're looking for a road to Nigeria. And I think our speaker was trying to be as factual and open-minded as he could. But nonetheless, there's still a few things to look at, and we'll look at them. Maybe you want to give us your closing remarks, Dele, and also speak to the fact of how do we ensure that INEC gives us credible results, and then you can give your closing remarks. Thank you very much. God bless you. And let me thank everyone for being on the platform. After this, the back end may have some information, maybe Jumoke or Sonny may have one or two things they want to say. But after Mr. Farotimi has spoken, he can let him go. And if there's anybody on the platform that has candidates that they want us to speak to, they should please try and bring them. We're trying to get Atiku Abubakar and Ashiwaju Jagaban to also come on the platform. So if anybody can reach them for us, please try and do so and let us have converse with them. Thank you very much. Dele, over to you.
Well, what I would say is this in closing. 2023 is not the usual elections that we have had in Nigeria. And its unusualness is marked particularly by the fact that we have had 7 winners years. Nigeria has been divided like it's never been divided before. All the illusions that have kept Nigeria together since 1966 have been largely destroyed by the very hubristic actions of Mr. or did I say General Buhari. But Buhari is the past. The future staring us in the face in 2023 leaves us with very few choices, but to look beyond our usual biases. We must find the commonalities that bind us together because all of us have suffered over these years. And we should know that we can't continue the way we are without ending up in even worse than we're already in. So I would suggest that 2023 is essentially a leadership recruitment process that we must all cotton on to and become engaged with. We must understand that if we do not quickly pull back from the brink of the abyss to which we have been pushed, Nigeria might very well end up in a cataclysmic civil war. I'm not looking to scare anybody, but if you look all around you, you can see clearly that we're already in very dire situations. People can't travel more than 50 kilometers outside any city limits before they start palpitating and worrying about the security of their lives. So this will suggest that we all need to become engaged. We also all need to look beyond our petty differences and find the basis to cooperate and to make life more tolerable and perhaps hopeful for those who will be coming behind. So generally, I just urge all of us, get involved. It is in our apathy that those who will rig elections, those who would presume to hold vetoes, it is in our apathy, our disconnect from the system that they are energized. INEC cannot rig for anybody if we are all involved. The Electoral Act has made it clear that election results should be transmitted right there at the polling unit. If you've registered to vote, vote. Hang around or come back by the time they are meant to be counting, make sure that the results are uploaded in front of you. This means that you are personally involved and invested in the process, and that makes it more difficult for those who will rig to rig. So I would just urge all of us to please get involved. Educate those within your circle of influence, those you can reach, the people who work for you, the people you work with, the people you exercise with if you exercise, the people you go to church with, the people you go to mosque with, the people in your school, all those within your sphere of influence.
God bless you.
Involved. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so
God
much,
bless you,
Dele.
sir.
God bless you.
I really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
everything. For those who are here, just to announce that while we're on this platform, Her Royal Majesty, the Queen of England, passed on just now. Her Royal Majesty, the Queen of England, passed on. So if you can all remember the family and the British people in your prayers, and we observe a minute silence in her honor. She was one of the leaders of this generation, although one of the people who laid the foundation for Africa's problem and this colonialism that we are suffering from. But nonetheless, she was a great leader. So 1 minute in
because
silence.
the 1,000, that one when they talk, I just
May her gentle soul rest in peace. May the Lord comfort the English and the British people, all the members of the Commonwealth, and may God bring forth a strong and faithful leader in her stead, and may it all be well with all of us. Thank you all very much for coming today. I don't know if Sonny or Jumoke from the back end have any announcements. And as I said before, please, if you are able to get any of the presidential candidates for us, please try and get them. We're expecting all of them. Ashiwaju, we're expecting Atiku, we're expecting Dumebi, we're expecting Kola Abiola, we're expecting the host of Kwakwanso and the host of them all. Please try and get them for us. God bless you. Any announcements from the back end, please?
We posted the YouTube link and the website, so if people can please subscribe to that, they'll find the recording for today's discussion and other such discussions. It's in the chat, the link to the YouTube and the website.
All right. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Tayo, it was good to see you today. Nice to see you. I hope all is going well. Greet Yele for me and take good care of yourself.
Same to you.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
All right.
Thank you, Pastor.
You're still in Manchester or Leicester or somewhere like that?
Liverpool.
Liverpool. Good. Bless you, bro.